Hey, I'm Hendo, and this is how I made my cosplay of Dark Magician Girl from Yu-Gi-Oh! I made this like 4 years ago, sorry for the delay. I moved from LA to Oslo here in Norway, and I'm really happy, but it was very exhausting and a really long process, so sorry about that, but I'm back. For those who have been here before, please leave a like or a comment just to help let the YouTube gods know that I'm back at it. And for those of you that are new here, hi, I'm Hendo. I go by Hendo Art online and I make lots of cosplays. Today's cosplay is Dark Magician Girl, and I use a bunch of different techniques, including foam crafting, pink insulation foam, Worbla, styrofoam, resin casting, painting, and a bunch of other stuff. Chapters are time-stamped and all the materials are listed below in case you need them. Let's get started. I realize that I don't usually talk about the way I break down an outfit for cosplay, and that information might be helpful, so I'm just gonna go over it really quickly right now. First things first, we have to decide on a variant because there are a lot of variations for this character. One of the main reasons for that is censorship when there is an English release of an anime. Stuff like gore, witchcraft, violence, and of course, boobies are some of the things most commonly censored. Dark Magician Girl is actually called Black Magician Girl in the original Japanese version. It was changed because black magic is like occulty or witchcraft or something. And in the Japanese version, instead of that gem on her chest, she has like a hexagram or sometimes a pointed star. And she also has a bigger bust. I like that version better, so that's what I'm gonna stick to. In some variations, she also doesn't have the like pink spirals on the sides of her hat. And in some, her bracers have a gold gem instead of a pink gem. And I like the spirals and I like the gold, so that's the version I'm gonna settle on. I can move on to planning out how I'm gonna make this thing. I am absolutely not styling a wig like that, mostly because I like a more realistic version, especially of hair, but also because I generally don't have the skills to style a wig like that. The hat is huge and it's really back heavy, so I'm going to make it out of foam so that it's definitely lightweight. Same for the bracers, but for the boots, I don't really like wearing rigid shoes, and I think that's how it would turn out if I made the boots entirely out of foam. So instead, I'm actually gonna paint a pair of boots blue and just make foam cuffs that attach to it with Velcro. I'm gonna break up her outfit into a bodysuit and a separate skirt. I also decided that I kind of want to play with this pink skirt part and have a layer of translucent organza on top just to make it a little like floofier and a little more magical, and I don't know, I guess I was just looking for something extra to add. All of that pink outlining I'm gonna do with fold over pink elastic, and these arrow parts are gonna have iron-on interfacing in between just to make it a little bit stiffer so it holds its shape better. The gold details I'll make out of craft foam and wrap in gold stretch vinyl. For the wand, I normally don't do props out of wood because it's a little prone to snapping, but because the wand is short enough, it should be fine. And now that we have a game plan, it's time to craft. I'm making the dress's bodysuit base out of this light blue stretch spandex. When I bought the fabric, I also went to Blick and made sure that I could find a very, very close match in spray paint. Since it's stretchy, I won't have to install a zipper, and it should be able to hold onto my shoulders and chest pretty well, so I don't have to worry about it slipping down. I'm using pink fold over elastic for the trim, making sure that I don't stretch it as I attach it because that would cause it to bunch up. It being elastic doesn't really matter. I could have used a non-stretchy bias tape, but I found this fold over elastic that was really cheap and a large quantity, and I found a spray paint that matched it pretty closely in color. This whole shoulder part has this pink fold over trim, but I'm also gonna add a matching blue fold over trim to the leg openings of the bodysuit, just because I don't like the raw edge and it tends to like pull and wedge up a lot more than if there's that elastic edge there. To make the front arrow detail and that skirt point thing, I've sandwiched interfacing between 2 layers of that sky blue spandex. I patterned the shape on paper and I'm tracing it over to the fabric with a water-soluble marker. I'm gonna go ahead and stitch directly on this outline because it shouldn't show under the pink trim anyway, as long as I cut my fabric pretty close to the stitch. For these gold skirt danglies, I'm cutting it out of craft foam and then gluing this stretch gold vinyl on top of it. I like to glue the foam directly onto the fabric first and then cut it out, and this will serve as the back. Then I flip it over and glue another piece of the gold onto this side that's like a little bit larger than the edges of the foam piece. And then you cut notches into the leftover fabric and like stretch and fold it over the underside. And I do it this way just so that there isn't some like obvious exposed foam on the underside. And I pinned these to a simple blue waistband in matching fabric to hold the skirt up. Because the color matches, I don't think it's going to be super noticeable, and it's actually going to help snatch my waist. I was also a little worried that if I made the skirt attached to the bodysuit or the dress and it got caught on something, that it might pull down the whole thing, which would obviously be terrible. So I think that having it as a separate skirt was just better for my own feeling of like safety and security. I'm also sewing that arrow point thing to this waistband using wax paper because my sewing machine did not like the texture of this vinyl. And the wax paper is pretty easy to tear off. I've made this skirt that's like a third of a circle. It's pink spandex, also with that fold over trim, except I did stretch the trim slightly as I pinned it so that it would have this ruffly effect. I did the same thing with this pink organza, except that piece is slightly shorter and wider than the piece before it. I'm going to attach these together, bunching up the organza layer a little bit so that it matches the width of the pink layer underneath. This just kind of makes it full and ruffly. I'll sew this to the blue waistband that already has the gold details. It should have enough open space at the front that I don't really have to create a closure or detach this waistband in some kind of way. It should just stretch out to fit. I tried doing the star emblem a few different ways. First, I used a half of a Christmas ornament and did Worbla strips for the star. This felt kind of flimsy, like it could crack at any moment, and it didn't take paint super well, so I decided to make a cast out of it and try something else instead. I tried casting it out of foam clay, but it took a bit too long to dry on the inside. I kind of feel like it never really dried, even poking little pinholes into it. And then also the whole thing shrank a bit and I didn't really want that. So third time's the charm. I decided to use an epoxy resin and I poured it really slowly to make sure that it gets in all the crevices of that star. Oh my god, baby Luigi! This turned out pretty good. The color doesn't really matter because I'm going to paint it with acrylic paint, and it's also not too heavy, and the flat backing of it is going to make it easier to super glue to the dress. And woo, the dress is finished. I think it looks pretty good. I'm just wearing a strapless bra underneath, but I am wearing pasties just for safety, but honestly the whole thing feels pretty secure. I also don't have to worry about the skirt or this pointy thing lifting up because it's a bodysuit underneath. I also forgot to show how to do the cape, but it's the exact same process as the pink skirt, it's just sewn to the top of the back of the dress. For the bracers, I did a duct tape pattern on my forearm, and I have a bunch of these gems from this specific mold that I use. Every time I cast some extra, and I'm just using these to determine what size from the mold I want to use. I'm also going to add magnetic straps for the bracers. I don't think they're going to show as long as I have it on like the inside of the arm. I just really don't like to use a zipper or Velcro for that. I love magnets. And I'm attaching them by gluing a layer of craft foam on top of them to create a sort of pocket so that the magnet can't rip out. Now I'm taking my pattern and making the bracers out of craft foam. I have a 2-part epoxy resin and I'm just adding some shimmery gold pigment to it. I believe I'm using this larger one here and I only need 2 of them, but I always pour extra because I have extra. And I'm also casting a pair in pink. I'm gluing the gems right onto the foam with 30-second set super glue. The gold ones go at the top and the pink ones go towards the wrists. And finally, I'm just using foam clay to create a little gem setting that goes around the gem. Then I heat sealed the bracers, Plasti-Dip them, primed them, and now I'm ready to paint. I use filled water bottles to set the bracers onto so that I can paint everything in one go and don't have to like flip them over. Then I taped off the blue part and painted the trim pink. Sorry I didn't film that, I did it at night. All that's left is to paint that gem setting gold and add a little bit of black acrylic paint to create some shading for all the details. I think they turned out great, they're comfy, they don't slide around, and I don't think you're gonna see the magnets in most of the pictures. The necklace is just craft foam wrapped in spandex gold vinyl, just like those skirt danglies. And I don't know if I mentioned before, but I used barge contact cement for this. It just kind of works the best with foam. I cast this pink gem and just super glued it to the tip of this necklace. I'm also wrapping this gold jewelry wire around the gem to create a setting, and that's held on with a super glue also. I love how it turned out, and I can barely feel that it's there. I'm making the boot cuffs out of EVA foam. Each boot is gonna have 2. The bottom one has a couple of gems on it, and the top one comes to this like pointy shape at the top. The shape was actually really easy to make, and I'm just sanding down the seams before I add this half round dowel foam trim as a detail. These curtain grommets are the perfect size to be a gem setting for the resin gems I'm gonna cast. And since the resin gems are gonna be rigid, it doesn't really matter that this grommet is rigid. I traced where the grommets are gonna go and just super glued it right on. And I'm just filling the gap between the grommet and the cuff with some silicone caulking, and also adding that to some of the gaps that I had in a few seams. It's really easy to smooth this stuff down with some water, and it doesn't shrink as it dries. So same as the bracers, I've heat sealed these, Plasti-Dipped them, primed them, and painted them blue and pink. I'm using these old boots for this project and just cutting off the buckles. I also took out a stitch that was creating that like wrinkled rouging effect, so now they just look like regular boots. You'll notice that these are faux suede boots and not vinyl. I think that the suede absorbs the paint a lot better. It kind of takes up more paint, but the paint really grabs onto the suede texture more than the vinyl, which tends to chip or peel off. It has a little bit of a texture, but I don't think it's that noticeable. You can really only see it if you're up close. And I'm adding a little bit of black shading to all of the details and using that 30-second set super glue to attach the gems to the cuffs. I've also sewn Velcro to foam, and then we'll put barge contact cement on these foam pieces and attach it to the inside of the cuffs. These will attach to the Velcro sewn to the boots so that the cuffs stay in place. I love how it turned out. They're really comfy and easy to walk in, and I'm kind of surprised the like cuff Velcro situation has worked out really well. And this also means it's going to be a little bit easier to pack and travel with. For the hat, I'm actually gonna have a separate video describing in detail the process of making the hat, because it's kind of like long and a little bit complicated, and this video is long enough. But here's a little TLDR. I made it out of, I think, 5mm EVA foam, and it has these half round dowels to serve as this trim. And these spirals were done with foam clay, and the whole thing is Plasti-Dipped, spray painted, and it has a little bit of that black acrylic paint for the details also. I also am gonna have a separate video for the wand, because that's also a longer process, but TLDR, it's a wooden dowel with some foam details. The spiral is carved out of pink insulation foam, and that bottom round spherical bit is a styrofoam ball. And both are wrapped in Worbla. And then again, it's spray painted, acrylic painted, and has a bit of that black acrylic paint to just bring out some of the shading for those details. Thank you so much for watching. I absolutely love how this Dark Magician Girl cosplay turned out, and I extra want to thank my Twitch stream that helped. And I extra want to thank my Twitch stream who watched me make a lot of it and also encouraged me to get the dang project done in the first place during lockdown while I had not a whole lot else to do. Don't forget to check out my video making the wand and the hat, and check out my other stuff. And if you want to go the extra mile to support this channel, I'm back on Patreon. Thanks again for watching, and stay crafty! Thank you so much to my patrons over on Patreon, especially my $15 patrons, Brandon, Grant, Mike, Nips86, Robert, Turner, A, and William. Thanks so much, and see you next time!